96.3 FM and 1370 AM WOCA. PPIR is a networking group formed to serve the realtor and small business community. It primarily serves the real estate and construction industry, but is open to all businesses that provide any service or product to the real estate business community. PPIR has no membership dues or fees for attendees. The watchwords are keep it simple and maximize networking time. PPIR chapters meet 3 times monthly at different locations after normal business hours. For information on this, call 352-615-9412 or go to events at ppirevents.com. PPIR, professional people in real estate.
Welcome back to autumn. The weather is cooling off and the leaves will turn colors. At Palm Garden of Ocala, autumn is celebrated with special activities and cold weather menus, even pumpkin spice. But they do not celebrate fall. At Palm Garden, fall can represent pain and injury. If you have fallen and need short-term rehab, Palm Garden is your best choice. During autumn, the only thing that should fall are leaves. Palm Garden is located on the corner of Southwest 27th Avenue and 34th Street.
The Knights improved to 5-0 after a nice win against the South Lake Eagles.
Rucker hits his man Thornton right in the chest. He makes a man miss. He's trying to carry another one into the end zone for a touchdown. Knights!
The journey for the Knights will continue this Friday as they head to Leesburg to take on the Yellow Jackets. All the action is brought to you by First Federal Bank on the corner of First Avenue and Silver Springs Boulevard. Small enough to matter, big enough to care. So join us Friday night as the Knights take on the Leesburg Yellow Jackets right here on WOCA, The Source.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
All right, 24 minutes before 11 o'clock. I'd like to introduce our next guest by telling a sweet story. All right, I have a sweet story I want to share with you.
Okay.
A lot of people may know this, and a lot of people may not know that. So for the sake of those who don't, let me just tell you, I have a friend who I've been friends with since 1972. He has Down syndrome. He was 11 years old when I met him. I was 17 at the time, and I've remained friends with him all these years. He is now 56, 57 years old, something like that, and he just had 58. A birthday. 58?
Yep.
And so he has been, after he lived with his mom pretty much all of his life, and when his mother died, he moved into a group home. I didn't approve of the group home, and I'm not a relative, but there was no relatives around, and I actually saw him standing outside a dry cleaner, like in the boiling hot, thinking, what are you doing? What's going on here?
Yeah, that's horrible.
So I wrote some letters, and long story short, got him set up to be independent in his own mobile home. And I lived like a block away from him, so I'd always be down there, and he'd be down at my place. So in other words, I'm trying to establish a little story for you to indicate that we're good friends, and he's got Down syndrome. Okay. Well, now his health has gotten to the point where he needs to be in a group home. And the group home he's in now, just if they're listening, is outstanding. These people are really nice. They know what they're doing. The place is immaculate. What does that have to do with our next guest? It's this. So, I have become my friend Doug. His name is Doug. I'm Doug's Sunday breakfast buddy. Every Sunday, I take him out for breakfast, and we spend about 2 hours together. Sometimes he needs to go to the drugstore for one thing or another, or he just wants to go to the mall, whatever. So that's our Sunday morning together. So the other day, and he knows we talk to authors, just so you know, so set this up. So he wants to write a book. I said, great, what do you want to write a book about? He said, litter bugs. I want to tell people to stop littering. And I said, that's a great idea. And I said, let's see how many, because we're driving in the car, I said, let's see how many pieces of litter we can count. Okay? So we started counting, and wherever we were, before we got to the end of the block, we counted 25 or so pieces of litter. Mm-hmm. I said, you see that? It's right there in your own neighborhood. You got lots and lots of litter, so go pick it up. So wouldn't that be a great thing if everybody said, okay, I'm going to pick up the litter in my neighborhood, and maybe the people who actually throw the litter out the windows wouldn't do that anymore.
Right.
All right, but how do you pick up chlorpyrifos? How do you pick up chemicals that are being littered into the river? How do you pick up pesticides that are leaching into the groundwater, right? How do you do that? That's harder to do. And yet it's just as important. And we've spoken to people from Earth Justice before, and I think protecting our environment is a super important thing. If somehow you think that makes me a tree hugger nut, then so be it. But hey, come on, this is the only planet we have. I know people say you could live on Mars. Well, have you seen it? It doesn't look like there's much up there. Patti Golden is on the phone. She's an attorney for Earth Justice. I think actually Patti's been with us before, no?
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Maybe.
Yes, she has.
Patti, it's an honor to have you. Please excuse the long intro, but I wanted to tell Doug's story to kind of get to this. This is a hard... You can pick up an empty cup, but how do you pick up a pesticide, right?
Yeah, well, I'm really moved by that story because it illustrates the kinds of impacts that, unfortunately, this chemical, chlorpyrifos, or sometimes I just say CPR because that's what it does, what you'll need if you're exposed, but it can cause learning disabilities in children, not Down syndrome, but autism, attention deficit disorder, reduced IQ, and how do you pick up those pieces? It's a life, and what you need to do is limit the exposures in the first place. Either have it used safely if it can be, and if it can't be, then we have to stop using it. And that's what needs to happen with this particular pesticide.
No, I grew up in New York, and the Bronx River, for example, was horrible, absolutely horrible. I live now in Central Florida, and the rivers here are they're beautiful. But I've lived here long enough to also have seen a decline even in these beautiful rivers here, and I would hate to see it become like the Bronx River became.
Yeah, and this pesticide, chlorpyrifos, it's used on our foods. It's used on about 40 different crops, and it sticks with the food afterwards. Even when there's some testing of our foods for residues, it's been found in the melon, not the rind, but the melon itself. It's on apples, even though it can't be sprayed on the tree when the apples are there. It's sprayed before the apples emerge.
Really?
So it's in our food. It's even more problematic in our drinking water. It gets in drinking water at high levels. And if you live near the fields, you can be exposed when it drifts in the air from the fields to schools or homes. And children are most at risk because of the brain impacts that this causes in early life stages. And they can be just sitting in their yard or playing in a playfield or going to school and get exposed to this pesticide.
Why are officials so careless about this? I mean, in the drinking water, and then we just had that really bad news out of Michigan a couple years ago.
Well, we don't have a drinking water standard for this pesticide. It takes a long time to get them. And so we're relying on the laws that are focused on pesticides in our food, which fortunately account for drinking water exposures and say, well, if it adds up and it's too much exposure, then it has to go. We have a very strong law in the books that says if a pesticide is not safe, EPA cannot allow it to be used on our food. And that means this pesticide has to go. EPA has found it unsafe beginning in 2014, reiterated those findings in 2016. It had a deadline to act in 2017 in March. By that time, the election had happened. Scott Pruitt was in office. He met with the CEO of Dow Chemical, which is the main maker of this pesticide. He met with the trade group that represents the chemical companies. And even though a ban for this pesticide was all drafted and approved up to his level, he said, no, we're not going to do it. His chief of staff went and talked to the person in charge and said, find another way. We want to know the alternatives. And he picked what he called a legalistic one, which was to say, we're not going to deny this ban. We're just going to study things for another 5 years.
I see.
And that means 5 more years of kids being exposed.
So the unspoken part is it's about the money.
Yeah. I mean, this is a pesticide that's been on our market since 1965. The research and development costs, they're all past.
Are they? Is there a mandate or whatever to label food that this has been used on?
No, there is not. So there isn't any way that consumers can know unless you buy organic or something else. There's some grocery outlets that will have a safer kind of food line, and those do not allow this pesticide on them. So that's another way that you would know, but it's not direct. California is considering requiring food to be labeled with this pesticide because of the developmental effect.
Well, and here's why I was asking is because if I knew that this is dangerous and the only reason it's in my food is because somebody wants to make $1, then I would just simply boycott all products with that name on it.
Right, and you know, we've been talking to folks about that kind of approach, but given that the federal government has a legal obligation to ban this pesticide, and you know, it was all ready to go. A lot of growers were anticipating that the use had been going down over the past few years. We went the route of trying to make the government do its job.
Since you are based in Seattle, you've had good luck in raising awareness for the dangers for the pesticide dangers affecting the Pacific salmon, all of the orca whales out there. I hope all of that success migrates down to Florida, where we're having such a problem.
You know, unfortunately there as well, and this is bad, we've been fighting both of these for like 10, 15 years, and we've won in the courts that, again, this is the Environmental Protection Agency that's the regulation in charge, the agency in charge. It has an obligation to make sure the pesticides it allows to be used won't wipe out endangered species, and we've been pushing it to comply with that law for salmon and more recently orca whales. Just earlier this year, the expert Fish and Wildlife Agency came out with its assessment of the impacts of this and some of the other pesticides in the same class and said that they could jeopardize the survival of the listed salmon populations on the West Coast and the orca whales that are up here in the area, the Puget Sound area around Seattle, because the orcas depend on the king salmon for their survival. So if this pesticide is going to diminish the king salmon populations further, it could damage. And I don't know if the news has spread to your region, but we've had front page tearjerker stories about this mother orca whose baby died right after birth, and she carried it around for weeks.
Yeah, we had that story. That was so sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we had another young whale that just was starving and is missing for 2 weeks and presumed dead. And, you know, it just breaks your heart because there are only 74 orca whales left in this population. And so, you know, we're doing a lot of salmon habitat restoration. We're doing a lot of things to try to help them recover. But if we put pesticides and other toxic chemicals that are going to harm their food supply out there, then we're not giving them a chance.
Why don't the gardeners and farmers in our area just refuse to purchase all of the pesticides? I mean, they're all for sale in the big box stores, but yet, you know, when you talk to a farmer or a gardener, they're advocating their use. How come they just don't say, no, we're not stocking this anymore?
You know, I think that takes a lot of organizing, you know, a big markets campaign with a lot of organizing. I can tell you on this particular pesticide, it cannot be sold over the counter to homeowners. Back in 2000, when EPA first reviewed it under this new law, it did find this pesticide was too dangerous to be used in and around the home. At that time, they were modeling children who would crawl around on carpets or hug their pets after a flea bomb, and they decided those kids were just at risk. And at that point, they weren't even looking so much at the brain impacts. They were looking at acute poisonings. And so the companies realized, okay, we're going to lose on this one, so they took it off the market. It is not allowed to be purchased by anyone but a professional applicator. So at least for this pesticide, you're not going to have people bringing it home and using it. There are other ones that should be in that class and should not be offered to people to buy because they're too dangerous. I think people assume that they would be protected against dangerous pesticides and don't realize,
right.
You know, that what a backlog there is, and that our government allows some other pesticides that really should not be used, you know, and have your kids exposed that are available for purchase.
So this goes back how many years? To 2007?
Well, it actually goes back to, we have this new law that I keep talking about. It was 1996. There was a 10-year deadline. It was the first time we really were having strong health standards for pesticides in our food. And the most important thing for this purpose is all of the old pesticides had to be brought into compliance, which had not happened before. And so this class of pesticides, these are called organophosphates, and they were developed as nerve gases by the Nazis, actually, in World War II, and then after the war adapted for commercial purposes. And everyone thought these pesticides would have to go under the new law. And there were about 4 dozen, and now there are about 20 left on the market, and many of them very limited uses, but some, like chlorpyrifos, are very widely used. And it just, some of the uses went. Like I said, the apples can't be sprayed when the apples are on the tree. The home uses are gone. For this, when we had the deadline in 2006, this pesticide was kept on the market, and that's when we petitioned to get it banned and to have the government consider the damage to children's brains. And it's taken a long time. We've gone to court numerous times, gotten court orders with deadlines for EPA to act. And then the final deadline, we had a proposed ban. The final deadline was 2017 to finalize that ban. Scott Pruitt said, I don't feel like it. And so we went to court. I mean, one of the great things about living in this country where we are governed by law and interested members of the public. My clients are farm workers and health professionals and learning disability advocates, that we can go to court and hold the government to the law. And that's what the Court of Appeals has done, and told EPA it acted illegally. It cannot keep an unsafe pesticide on the market, and it has to ban it. Now, EPA can seek further review, and we should know today whether they're going to do that.
Oh, today is the day?
Today's the day.
All right, so I looked up just so that I would have something to ask you, and it said, in the proposal to ban the insecticide, the EPA under the Obama administration followed the precautionary principle. What is that? What is the precautionary principle?
Well, it means that if something cannot be proven safe, we can't be exposed to it. Now, it's not anything. It means if there's evidence of harm. Here, actually, you don't have to be that precautionary to say this pesticide should go, because EPA had modeled impacts, and it had found it unsafe. And just by one example, infants are the most exposed because of how much water they drink. And I said drinking water was the worst in terms of exposures, and then also things like apple juice and things like that. And they're exposed to 140 times the level EPA has said would be safe. So it's not really precautionary to say that has to be banned. So,
I mean, if it's been so many, we have had several presidents, obviously, since this has been already established that it was harmful. It goes back to money, right? I mean, it's got to be money that is the primary reason why nobody's done anything about it yet.
Well, yes, when we got the residential ban, that was in the Clinton administration, and they negotiated with the chemical companies and said, it's off the charts here for children in the homes, and they cut a deal. They said, okay, we'll cancel the residential uses, but let us keep the agricultural uses. And there's some of them went, so not all of the uses were remained, but that was the deal that was cut. So, and it was kind of negotiation to avoid the confrontation that would have happened if there was a ban, because I'm sure Dow Chemical would have challenged it. It would have dragged on for years. And so that's kind of how it happened. I think often it's a let's make a deal instead of let's protect the children.
Are these chemicals similar to all of the chemicals that the red tide brings in and just right off of our coast of Florida? I mean, they're killing fish. The red tide is horrible. Are there any similarities?
I think you're getting a lot of nutrients that then are combining with different chemicals, and I think it might be more herbicides than this pesticide. I don't know of this one being linked to red tide.
Okay, so I guess the next step is to go back to my intro where I'm talking to Doug about picking up the garbage. What do we need to do to, figuratively speaking now, pick up the garbage? Do we have to write our congressman? Do we put pressure on somebody to make a change? And tell me what we do when we find out the news today. Do we cheer? I mean, we have to know if they're saying yes or no, right?
Yes, we will put that out. Our website is www.earthjustice/toxicfood.org. And so we will notify everyone what they do. But I do think it's important to be heard. I think it'd be great to be asking your retailer, are you carrying food that has this pesticide on it? To let your members of Congress know. There are bills in Congress to ban this pesticide. And if we get the ban, or I guess I should say when we get the ban, I predict there will be moves in Congress to overturn it. And right to EPA. EPA at some point is going to decide when its reputation is too tarnished by taking these actions as well. I think all of these bodies are political. I think Dow Chemical will worry about its reputation at some point and say, we got to let this chemical go. I think the growers will feel the same way, and the retailers. So I would let people know you don't want your children exposed to this.
And I'm on well water at my place, and then I know people that are on city water. Is it more dangerous for me to be on well water, or does this seep into the city water also?
It varies by water system, but the pesticide acts with some of the chemicals that are used to chlorinate the water, or the alternatives to chlorine, and that makes it worse. So it depends on what your water system's using to make the water sanitary. Can
the county commission regulate the use of pesticides when they zone areas for different types of farming?
As a general rule, local governments can regulate pesticides. It depends on the state law, if the state law would prohibit them from doing so. But the idea of having zoning, you can't use pesticides here or only these types, would be something that they could do unless there's some state restriction.
Oh, no, that's very interesting.
All right, so earthjustice.org/toxic foods, is that right?
I think it's earthjustice.toxicfoods.org.
Oh, okay. I had it backwards. Okay. Patti, thank you for what you're doing. This is the kind of stuff we need to pay attention to. I never even heard of chloropyrifos. I'm not even saying it right, I'm sure. I never heard of it before, and obviously I just haven't been paying attention. But thank goodness for people like yourselves, like Earth Justice. I mean, I think you're making a big impact on the environment for the better. So just go to the website and write our congressman and do our research, and then we'll figure it out, right? I don't hear any politics about this. What I like about this is it wasn't political. Well, it is political, but it's not like we're blaming one person. There's this. It sounds like it's about wanting to make money, is what it sounds like.
I think it is, and things are uneven from one administration to another. But one constancy is it takes a long time, overwhelming evidence to get a ban on a chemical like this, and this repeats across the board. It repeats in other kinds of toxic chemicals, or making sure that chemical facilities are prepared for disasters, or regulating other kinds of pollution. The work I do, I'm amazed at how much evidence and how much time it takes to protect people from these kinds of hazards.
Again, Patti, thank you for being on the air with us today. It's really good information that I'm proud to be able to help with. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll be right back.
You are looking to work somewhere that treats employees like family, has a team atmosphere, and rewards your hard work. Does this sound like you? Then go to drsinstall.com, apply today, and get paid to learn a new trade while providing your family with great benefits. Visit drsinstall.com. That's drsinstall.com.
The 14th Annual Florida Bat Festival is October 20th from 10 till 5 at the Luby Bat Conservancy, 1309 Northwest 192nd Avenue in Gainesville. The Flying Giants are here to save the day. Come meet the Winged Crusaders, no capes needed, and celebrate some real superheroes of nature. Admission is $8 for adults, $5 for children ages 5 through 12, and children under 4 are admitted free. This fun, family-friendly festival features games, music, civic environmental organizations, crafts, food trucks, a beer garden, and of course, our superhero bats. Come have fun at the Luby Bat Conservancy.
This is James Snyder, inviting you to join me each Sunday morning at 9:30 for Sunday Joy on 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, WOCA, The Source.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Fox News Radio. I'm Lillian Wu. President Trump doubling down on support for Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh.
Brett Kavanaugh is an outstanding person, and I am with him all the way.
The president at the UN, where he'll address the General Assembly tomorrow, saying he thinks that new sexual misconduct allegations against Kavanaugh are political.
Democrats are now saying they think that scheduled Thursday hearing with the first accuser, Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, needs to be postponed indefinitely now that a former Kavanaugh classmate at Yale named Deborah Ramirez has come forward to accuse him of exposing himself to her at a party while they were both students at Yale.
Fox's Peter Ducey. And a food service worker at Comerica Park in Detroit fired after a video was posted online allegedly showing him spitting on pizza intended for customers. Fox News, we report, you decide.
Are you taking Viagra and tired of paying $50 per tablet? Marley Drug has generic Viagra for just $10 per tablet. $10 for generic Viagra is a savings of $40 per dose. Call now and get free shipping on 10 tablets or more of generic Viagra. Marley Drug is a North Carolina pharmacy licensed in all 50 states. For information, go to marleygenerics.com or call us at 800-452-1760. That's 800-452-1760.
When working at a growing business, you wear many hats. The new business hat, the buying toner for the copy machine hat, the sifting through tons of resumes hat. You can throw away that last hat thanks to Indeed.com. When posting your job, Indeed lets you add screener questions that give you a less time-consuming route to your short list of qualified candidates. So go ahead, dust off that extra long lunch hat. Hiring's better when you've got your short list. Save time on hiring when you post a job on Indeed. Get started today at Indeed.com/hire.
Here is your one-minute news brief. Weather professionals are keeping a watch on several disturbances in the Atlantic Ocean. Tropical storm Kirk may gain some strength the next few days. A broad area of low pressure southwest of Bermuda has been given a medium chance of developing, and subtropical storm Leslie formed yesterday in the central Atlantic. A 38-year-old man was struck by a vehicle and killed Friday morning while walking his 7-year-old daughter to her school bus on Southeast 180th Avenue Road. Authorities have recovered the body of an 18-year-old man in a pond near the University of Central Florida. A St. Lucie County man is charged with 2 counts of murder in the killing of an expectant mother and her unborn child. A Daytona Beach man is facing a felony charge after authorities say he told a television station and sheriff's deputies that he was going to shoot down the sheriff's helicopter. And WOCA The Source is giving tickets away to Dollywood. And that is your news brief from The Source.
Partly sunny on this Monday with a shower or thunderstorm around during the afternoon hours. Along the coast, just a shower or two during the morning hours. The high 88 at the coast.